Okay.
All right. Good morning, Alex. How are we doing today?
Hey, Sabrina. We are doing fabulous here in the Boston area. How are you doing?
Great. I'm doing well. Thank you.
Awesome.
So I've brought you on. You are my second person to interview.
Woohoo.
You I just wanted to get to know you and, find out more about you. Hence the series, Meet the Team. So you would be the second person on my list. So yeah, we're just gonna ask you a couple questions and see who Alex is.
Yes. Let's learn about
So
Alex today.
yes, I'm very excited. Oh, sorry, I meant to fix this. Okay. So can you tell us a little bit about your professional journey and what led you to become in the recruiting business and the consulting industry? Just kind of like overall, what's your role? Who is Alex, basically?
Sure. It's a bit of I definitely did not take a cookie cutter path in life. That is for sure. I actually went to college for cinematography. So I was always, ever since I was a child, my dream was always to work in film. Not necessarily in front of the camera, although I did do a lot of work in front of the camera, but I always really wanted to strive to understand the business as a whole, and both in front of the camera and what it's like behind the camera. So I went to school for cinematography. I left after my sophomore year at the wise age of 19, and I moved out to Los Angeles without knowing anybody
Oh,
I didn't
wow.
know anybody out in LA. I didn't have a place to live. I didn't have any money. I did the whole live out of my car thing for,
Hmm.
a little while.
Oh my
Um,
gosh.
yes, I was a very brave girl back then. But I got hired very, very quickly. Um, I got hired very quickly and my career just kind of took off. So for about 5 or 6 years, I was out there working in casting and production in LA. And amongst other things, I was involved in, fashion photography and things of that nature as well. But it was very much I'm a very creative person, so it really catered to my creative side. I ended up moving back to Massachusetts in my early to mid 20s to take care of my mother through a series of health items.
Mhm.
And that was how I actually ended up falling into the hotel industry, where I spent a lot of my career. So I actually walked into, I was in Massachusetts. All of my stuff was still in LA, mind you, because I thought I was going to go back to Los
Oh
Angeles.
man.
Yeah, but it was taking so long taking care of my mom and, dealing with the family situation that I actually just ended up walking into a hotel one day and I asked to speak to HR and I said, I'm looking for a part-time job. Honestly, I don't know anything about the hotel industry, but I'm in Massachusetts taking care of my mom and we have some family issues, blah, blah, blah. 2.5 hours later, HR and I are, just having a grand old time. And he said to me, have you ever thought about doing sales? And I said, absolutely not. Salespeople are shady. I would never be a salesperson, blah, 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 blah. And he just looked at me and he's like, I don't think you quite know what you're talking about. And I was like, what do you mean? I know everything. I'm 24. Yeah. So long story short, he saw something in my personality that I was completely unaware of at the time. And so he just really encouraged me to come back and meet with the director of sales and marketing, which I did. Then they had me come back because I still wasn't convinced that I should be doing this move. I
Oh my
literally
gosh.
knew nothing about the hotel industry. I knew nothing about sales, except for that both of my parents worked in sales and they both loved it and they were both really great at it. So then they encouraged me to come back and meet with the owners of the hotel, which is not usually
Wow.
something that you have to do during an interview process for a hotel.
Yeah.
There was a lot of risk with me. There was risk because
Mhm.
I had zero experience, but they just really saw something. So I met with the owner of the hotel and we decided to give it a try. And I won manager of the year for the hotel within my first year.
That's
Um,
so impressive.
and so my career kind of took off from there.
Yeah,
So I
yeah.
did, my first hotel was in Springfield, Massachusetts, which is where I'm from. It's where the Basketball Hall of Fame is. And then after I was at that hotel for about a year and a half, 2 years, I had built up, my goal at that property was to build up my resume. I wanted to make a sparkly resume because there is one thing that is innately in me, and that is I'm a very ambitious and motivated individual. So once I realized that I really enjoyed what I was doing, and that sales wasn't necessarily a sleazy or a slimy thing, because I am a very transparent person. And that was something that my first boss and I used to get into pretty heavily, because he had a little bit more of an old school approach to sales. It felt a little too door-to-door salesy for me. Not comfortable with that. And I thought it was a little bit misguided for a variety of reasons. So he and I we didn't totally agree in the beginning. He wanted me to use this sales script, and it just felt so wrong coming out of my mouth. And it wasn't me. And so while we disagreed, I started trying things in a way that made more sense for my personality and for how I would want to be communicated to if I were in a client's shoes. And he saw that I started getting really great traction. So eventually, long story short, he kind of set me loose, let me do my thing, and I met my goal. I think my first year I met my goal by 225%.
Wow.
And after that, he just let me run wild. And so I built myself a really sparkly resume. And then I started applying to jobs in Boston, because that's the next logical sense, is to go into the big city. So I got hired very quickly in Boston. I worked at 2 different hotels in Boston. And then I had the opportunity to be part of a pre-opening of a hotel that was being built in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And that was actually, being on a pre-opening team was on my bucket list. I really wanted of that experience. So I moved to Pittsburgh and got that experience. And oh my gosh, I highly encourage somebody, if you ever have the opportunity to be involved in a new store opening or a new restaurant or a new hotel, it is some wildly valuable experience. You will work your butt off. Sure. You will work your butt off.
Oh yeah.
But I mean, the satisfaction and the warmth you feel, because it feels like your baby by the time you're done with it, right? And so when you see the doors open and the customers coming in, it's a really incredible feeling. So I did that for a while, moved back to Boston, worked at 2 additional hotels in the Boston area. Then I went down to DC and did sales there, where I won Sales Manager of the Year globally for Hyatt twice. I won the Sales Manager of the Year the first time I won it was in Boston. The second time I won it was in DC. And I'm only a handful of people in the company's history that has won that award twice. I always tell people who are wanting to get into the sales industry, it is very important to me to not come off as a salesperson. For me, it's very important to actually just be a real partner to my client. And in order for me to be a real partner to the client, it's all about product knowledge for me. So when I would go to a new hotel, the first thing I would do is spend hours upon hours about learning about the hotel. I wanted to know how it works, where our challenges are, what the challenges and pluses are with the meeting space, how the staff is, because the better I understand the hotel, then once I start to learn about my potential client and what their needs are, I can see if it's really a good fit for them. And honestly, there have been occasions where I would tell people, this is not the right hotel for what your needs are. I didn't want to sell them a pipe dream that we could execute, So I did hotel sales for, I think, 15 years, maybe somewhere around there. I lose track sometimes of the years.
So a long time.
So I did that for a while, and then the pandemic happened. When the pandemic happened, I was actually with a startup company. It was a hotel startup company, and we were doing pop-up hotels. And I know pop-up hotels is kind of an interesting concept, but it was a very cool idea. The company was started by 2 real estate gurus. And essentially, when you have a new high-rise building, a new residential high-rise building that goes up, it usually takes about 2 to 3 years to fill it with permanent residents. So what we would do is, during that time where it was a new building and they didn't have it filled with residents, we would contract like 3 to 4 floors of the building and sell it as hotel rooms.
Interesting.
And then once they didn't need us anymore, we slowly backed out, and then we would just hop into the next building. So it was a lot of fun. But I was doing that when the pandemic hit. And then for the first time since I was 11 years old, I was without a job, because I started working very young. And so during that time, one of my clients actually hired me to do logistical contracting work for a small federal government agency. So I did that. It was primarily remote during the pandemic. And then when they started to do their in-person events again, I was handling these 2 to 3 week long programs where we had decision makers from other countries coming to the United States to meet with these massive corporations. And the whole purpose of it was to increase export potential from the United States to these other countries.
Okay.
So I did a program for Egypt, and I did a program with Latin and Central America, and it was a ton of fun. Oh my gosh, it was
Yeah,
so
I can
much
only
fun.
imagine.
So much fun. It was a blast. I mean, I still keep in touch with the folks from Egypt. I have all these cool little gifts from like Mexico and Egypt and all over the world
Wow.
send me. So that was a really great experience. Working with the federal government had its challenges, of course.
Mhm.
And so as the pandemic started to wind down, I had a brief return to my hotel career. And in a hotel, and when you're as ambitious as I am, which has positives and negatives, trust me, I'm accustomed to working 16-hour days and 7 days a week and always being
Yeah.
on call. But I realized after the pandemic, I had gotten a little taste of that whole work-life balance thing, which I'd only read about. I thought it was a myth. I didn't think it was real. And so I had a little taste of it. I went back to the hotel world and I was committed to going back to my hotel and trying to shed myself of some of my bad habits of my workaholism is what I call it. So I'm a total workaholic. I realized that I was not quite in that place yet. And I just saw all the signs coming of me, my career was always first. And then, I mean, everything else was second, including family, friends, etc. And for the next portion of my life, I wanted that to be different. I'd already established a good name for myself in the industry. So I didn't need to bend over backwards because I'd put in, 15 years of blood, sweat, and tears.
Right.
So I went back after the pandemic. I just realized that I was going to be working a lot of hours again because it's just the nature of my personality. I like to help out whenever I can, and there's always things to be helping with in a hotel. And so after about 2 months, I said, I can't do it anymore. If my heart's not in it, then there's no way I'm going to be motivated to work those kinds of hours and do the time that I am accustomed to. And so I had to reevaluate my life. And I had no idea what that meant for as far as next steps. And somehow just the skies opened up and this lovely gentleman found me on LinkedIn and said, I help people search through alternative career paths. Are you interested in having a conversation? Normally I would say thanks, but no thanks. But I didn't have anything to lose at that point. I didn't know what I was
why not?
for the rest of my life. So I set up a call with him and I kept my kind of BS sniffer on just in case it was a Ponzi scheme. And it turned out to be a life-changing conversation. That is how I got introduced into the world of franchising. Once I started learning more about franchising and the positives that come with being a franchise owner, depending on what business model you're looking at. That was when I discovered that you could be a franchise owner for a recruiting firm. I didn't know that was a thing.
Yeah, me neither.
I just assumed that being a franchise owner meant you were going to be a franchise owner of a Dunkin' Donuts or a McDonald's. But the reality of it is that there are so many different franchising opportunities out there. And it really, I just got that little twinkle in my eye and I felt my motivation come rushing right back. And so I scraped together what money I could and, got a loan from the bank. And then I opened up my franchise. I met Greg, and then Greg and I have merged our companies together and we're embarking on this new adventure with REQ Consulting. And that's the very abbreviated version of how I got to where I am today.
Alex, I'm truly blown away. You have lived so many lives.
This
is crazy.
I have lived a few lives. I was also a director of operations for a convenience and gas store chain for a small stint there before I realized that was not it for me, but I have lived quite a few lives.
That's incredible. I'm truly so impressed. Like, wow. Wait, so what school did you start at? I forgot to ask what college that you ended up.
So when that was such an exciting time. I feel so fondly towards my college years. I went to Ithaca College in upstate New York, right across from Cornell University, which is funny because Cornell has an amazing hospitality and hotel management program, which I had nothing to do with. I was across the street going to Ithaca for cinematography. I actually started off as a theater major. I had been in the theater since from a very, very young age, which is why I think I talk so loudly, because you have to project in the theater.
Yes.
And now I don't know how to turn that part of me off. But I started in the theater, but my long-term goal had always been to get to film. So I transferred over, or I applied and was accepted to get into the communications program for my sophomore year. I went to focus in cinematography.
Okay. But then you decided college isn't for me.
Well, you know, that's the funny thing is I actually loved college.
Oh, really?
I do. I love college. I love learning. I've always loved learning. I still do love learning. You know, it was more so I'm a very hands-on person. I find that things resonate in my brain best with hands-on experience, probably because I started working from such a young age, because we didn't have a lot of money when I was growing up. So I think a lot of it was just because I grew up working since I was 11, you know. So I don't know how I convinced my family to let me move to LA at 19 years old. I must have been.
Hey, you made it work.
I did make it work. Don't get me wrong. I fell on my butt so many times. I say that, especially with my time in LA, the biggest, I wouldn't even need to go to college because I learned so many life lessons in LA. I am now sober, so I'll just leave it at that. I am now sober. It was a big portion of my life I was not sober. So while I was wildly successful, there were some other things that I was working on, and I wear my sobriety like a badge of honor. So yeah, I learned a lot. I fell on my butt a lot over the years, but you know what?
It's all part of the process.
It is part of the process, because I actually look back to when I was in high school and middle school, I was incredibly shy. I was not nearly as outspoken and confident as I am now. And the reason that I have all of that is because of how many times I kept falling on my butt, picking myself up and trying it again and again and again. So I'm very grateful for all of the experiences, good and bad, especially the bad. Really.
Yeah, it's a really good thing to recognize within yourself, I'd say.
Yeah.
For sure.
Otherwise, I would probably still be the same shy, not, you know, person I was before. And now, I mean, there's really very few situations that I can walk into where I think I would be uncomfortable or nervous. Because I feel like I've, you know, lived a few lives and nothing really scares me anymore.
Yeah, for sure. So you were born and raised in Springfield, Massachusetts? I
was born and raised in Springfield, Massachusetts. Yep. It wasn't the right fit for me for long term, but I've always been kind of a big thinker. So I knew I was going to end up in a large city anyway.
Yeah. And then, so, sorry, bringing it forward. So what is your like current position? Like, what's your title? Do you have a title?
Yes, Greg and I are both partners in our business. So we split the company 50-50. For the time being, I primarily work on the recruiting side of our business and let Greg handle the other things. The reason I focus more on the recruiting side is I've been doing it a little bit longer than Greg, and I have a very strong track record. You know, in April, I had 4 placements. May, I had 3 placements. So I've done very well on the recruiting side. And it's interesting because I see, you know how I told you that I went to acting school for like many, many years. I see so much of the skill. I was very serious as a child. I took my acting career, my future acting career, very seriously. I was reading books. I was studying. I was in classes 7 days a week. Even when I had summers off, I didn't have summers off. I was in camp in New York City, and you know, my poor parents had to drive me all over the place. My extracurricular activities were longer than my you know, professional resume is. But it's interesting because the older you get, the more you see how much your skills transfer into your professional life. So my acting, the tools I learned during my years in acting studies, you know, a lot of my assignments in college would be to observe people, watch people when they don't know that you're watching them, because you can tell a lot about somebody's body language, how they maintain or don't maintain eye contact. that how they fidget. You can learn so much about somebody just from watching them without even talking to them. And so I use a lot of those skills in recruiting and with my clients. Specifically with recruiting though, one of the things that Greg and I frequently discuss is the use of AI when it comes to the hiring process. And we both feel very strongly that AI can work for certain things, of course. We are all still human beings though. Like a computer is not yet to the point where it can read your body language. It's not, you can use ChatGPT to help you write a resume, and that resume is going to be great, but does that mean you're actually going to be good at the job? Because, writing that you have experience and then actually having experience, or even how you show that you want to learn the experience, is more important to me. If you are somebody that has the motivation and the ambition and the drive, you can teach somebody the skill. You can't force somebody to be motivated. They have to figure that out for themselves, because there's a lot more personal, aspect to how
things that
motivate you.
Things that it will take a very long time for AI to figure out. And I'm sure it will one day, but I agree. It's that human aspect that's just missing, which is it's the point of AI, so.
Yeah. And I feel like with recruiting, even though I'm a human, I need to be part AI, I guess, because I need to pick up on what skills and what experience you do have, but I also need to read you as a person. Are you in this for the long haul? Are you a job jumper? Or have you just been in a situation where you haven't been given the right opportunities yet? So I really love the recruiting. I get very close with my candidates. I like to know who they are. I want to know about their families. I want to know about their kids. I want to know about them as a person too, because I don't want to just send bodies to our clients. I want to send the right person to our clients. And so I need to know both sides of a person, whether it's the candidate or my clients. Like if I have an owner of a restaurant group, I want to understand what my owner is like, because how his or her personality is going to better make me understand what personalities are going to make sense to work beside them.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yes. So in terms of you kind of sticking with your current role and how long it's taken you to get here, how do you foresee the role of recruitment like evolving in the consulting industry, like over the next few years in general?
Sure. I think sometimes recruiting has, actually can't say that I think this, I have heard from a multitude of candidates that there are a lot of terrible recruiters out there. People who aren't communicative, recruiters who don't actually care. So I think right now recruiting almost has a bad reputation, kind of like the word sales can have a bad reputation. I was the first person to say, oh, salespeople are slimy, when my HR director was trying to convince me to try doing sales out. I think the same thing with recruiting. I think it's developed a bad reputation. I think that there's a lot of areas for improvement and opportunity. The way I see recruiting, well, first of all, as an industry as a whole, I'm concerned for it because so many companies are relying on AI. I would be very curious to see how the utilization of AI equates into their turnover in a company. I'm very much looking forward to starting to see studies on that, because I can tell you, even as the owner of a hospitality firm where the bulk of our business is recruiting right now, I get probably 5 to 10 emails a day from different little companies who are trying to sell me on their AI functionalities to use to help with staffing. And I've taken a call with probably 10 to 15 of them. None of them have blown me away with what their methodology is. And none of them have been able to answer my question about, well, what about the human element aspect of it? What can you tell me about reading somebody's behaviors? How is this going to help me, gauge somebody's level of motivation and ambition? And nobody's had a solution to that. So I am concerned for the future of recruiting. As a whole, I think it's obviously going to be impacted, and it already is impacting. There have been massive layoffs for recruiters across the country. The way I really plan on building REQ with Greg is the human element of it, because
Yeah.
I think there is going to be a point that companies are going to realize that, okay, we were relying too heavily on technology, and I
Mhm.
get there's a cost savings to it, but you have to keep into account the cost savings with having a higher level of retention within your company. That is
Yes.
a massive cost savings. So if you
Mhm.
invest more time and energy during the hiring process, your turnover is going to be lower and your retention is going to be higher. Because I think as recruiters, we need to do more than just put, to use a hotel term, put butts in beds. We want to do more than just send you bodies. We want people to stay with you, help you build the company. And also, as your recruiter, I want to help you with your other problems or challenges with your company, which is why Greg and I have expanded to more than just recruiting. This is why we have other services we offer. We
Mhm.
help with retention, and we can help with onboarding, like real onboarding. I'm not talking about a 2-week training and then boom, people are done. I'm talking about real mentorship. I had real mentorship when I started in the hotel industry because I had no experience whatsoever, but it was the personality in me that they saw. And they just thought that that personality is what we need. And so they taught me the skills. It was a 6 to 12 month learning curve when I first started in hotels because there's a lot to learn in a hotel.
Mhm.
So I think companies need to remember what real training and real mentorship is like. And it needs to be in time and energy invested in the beginning of somebody's career with you. And it should be ongoing. That's
Yeah.
my personal beliefs on it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know much about recruiting myself, to be honest, and I didn't know that it was, so multifaceted as it is. Um, but yeah, I totally understand what you're saying. I mean, maintaining that human aspect. Honestly, this is kind of why I'm doing this series with, the team and, my Meet the Team series
Yep.
because it shows, that human aspect that it's still alive, it's still here. It is still the main backbone of, our company. I mean, not talk about myself in my own interview, but
Go for it.
I did a writing class, like a reporting and writing class my sophomore year of college. And we had to go around, we had to, come up with stories and get them published in local news and stuff. And so I was doing a big story. It was my, I'm forgetting the name of it now, but I was doing a big story at the end of the semester. And I went around to Scottsdale, Arizona, which is near where I am, and the whole area and interviewed people from hotels and restaurants and any like golf courses, the backbone. I really wanted to focus on those people who are behind the scenes, the people that you don't think about that often, the people that are literally, upholding the community
Yep.
and, everything like that. So I think it's very important to hone in on those people, every day. So
Absolutely.
I
And
very much
there's a
appreciate
client.
that.
Yeah, no, and there's a client that we work with that is so team focused. I'm completely impressed by them. And I wish more companies had the same mindset that they do. Their retention rates are through the roof. They are incredibly profitable. And the reason that they are so successful and so profitable is because they put their team first. They
Mhm.
are people first. And I will say that their interview process is very intense. It is
Yeah.
very intense. And it's something that I'm still kind of working on about how to properly guide people when you're interviewing with this company because they are very tough. But the reason they're so tough is because personality and behavior is a huge part of their culture. They don't want somebody coming in with an ego who thinks that they know everything. They want
Mhm.
somebody who is, no matter what your age, you are always willing to learn. You are always willing to better yourself. You are always going to want to better your team because think about it. When you are in any work environment, your team members are your family. You spend a lot of time together,
Yes.
there's virtually or in person. On the hospitality side, it's always in person. So if you're building the right team and everybody's motivated, everybody has the same vision, and everybody believes in it, people are naturally going to be happy. And that
Mhm.
happiness naturally transfers over to your guests and your customers. And so this company has just done amazing things. They take their training and their mentorship so seriously. I mean, I always tell candidates anticipate a minimum of 6 months of training.
Sure.
And that's for any position that they hire for. It doesn't matter how low or how high, because even their higher upper management hires, when they train, they start at the ground level
Mhm.
with their
Mhm.
training. It doesn't
Yeah.
matter if they might have to stay there a month until they really learn it, but they're going to learn every single position in their store before they become the general manager. So it could take 6 to 12 months easily.
Mhm. Mhm.
And people have to be okay with that. So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
I mean, it makes sense to me.
totally. But that's
Yeah.
also why I mean, every person that we've hired with them over the past 5 years, they haven't left. So their retention is incredibly high. They really
Mhm.
only use our company to help them when they're moving into a new area, because they promote so many people internally, which
Right.
is great. And that's why their profit margins are so high.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Okay.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
learn a lot on the recruiting side as well. Like, it's cool. I get to learn all these other
Mhm.
different businesses and how they operate, and you see what works and what's not working. And
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
gets to be also a great resource to our new and other clients to help
Mhm.
guide them along the way as well, because we are exposed to how all these companies do run their businesses, which gives
Right.
us a
Right.
bit of a unique perspective.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Yeah, definitely the perspective of seeing, the comparison, definitely, sparks some things for sure.
Absolutely.
So going over a little bit, um, where do you see yourself in the next 5 to 10 years?
Well, in a perfect world, you're going to be working for us forever, Sabrina. And
Yes.
no, where I would like to see the company go, and Greg and I have this vision, is, we are just going to keep expanding, getting in more of our own clients, expanding our recruiting team, and really just establishing ourselves as a partner. We are not a one-stop shop.
Mhm.
We're not just an only recruiting firm. We do have our hands in a lot of other areas that can really benefit a company, whether it be in healthcare with WOW, which, oh my gosh, I'm just so passionate about WOW. It is such a
Yeah,
great program for companies and individuals.
truly.
Yeah, it really is. And then, with PassPass and with Health Cues. So I just love that Greg is excellent at this, while I handle the recruiting, at finding other ways for us to help our clients. So
Mhm.
5 to 10 years, I hope that we have really established ourselves as a partner to our
Mhm.
clients, and that
Mhm.
people have been able to really not not see from afar, but experience the ways that we can help them. Greg and I like to keep a large network of consultants and restaurant owners and HR folks. We keep our network very broad, because a company's needs are all different. Somebody might want some assistance with human resources. Somebody might need some help with staffing. We want to make sure that our network is really utilized and that we have the resources available to help our clients. And
Yeah.
honestly, just because I'm passionate about the franchise world, personally, I'd like to have maybe a couple other franchises under my portfolio belt.
Yeah, why
Something
not?
I'm still working on, but let me finish it. Let me see what we can do with REQ first before I go to my next
Yeah,
adventure.
yeah, yeah. No, I love that. I
I,
love how dedicated you are to your work.
yeah, I still have a few lives left in me. I'm not done yet.
Yeah, yeah, why not?
Plus, we need to have fun
So,
along the way, and having fun is like,
exactly.
there's no point in doing any of this if I'm not having fun along the way.
Right.
So I should make
It
my own
is
fun.
very crucial to the whole process. I understand
Totally.
that. So finally, so just a little bit more about Alex, not from like a super professional point of view. Do you have like a personal goal that you work on or work towards that isn't related to your career? Any like outside,
That is a great
thing?
question. Yeah, that is a great question. And honestly, it is something that I had to, sobriety is a very big focus of my life, because being
Okay.
not sober was a very big, a big focus on my life. I
Yeah.
still look back and I'm not sure how I maintained being successful in my career, and how I maintained, my issues with substance abuse. So sobriety is a very important part of my life. It has to be a daily part of my life. Life is much easier for me as a sober person. So I'm very happy that I finally made it to sobriety. So that is a big focus of mine. And oddly enough, it's funny because in my sobriety, what I was having to kind of relearn who I am as a person. And so one of the things that I learned about myself was that I really only defined myself by my professional side. I didn't really give any attention or thought to who I am as a person and what I wanted personally. I was just always get to the goal, and I got there. And then there's my next goal, and then I get there. So that is something that I'm still actually working on, because it's a 20-year-old habit for me to break, being so career focused, that I am in my sobriety. I am actually working to figure out how to have kind of those personal goals, and what to do. And the other challenge with me is that I have so many interests, because I love to learn, that I have trouble narrowing it down. So, for me, it's just going to continue to keep my sobriety and figure out what that means for my personal life, because I'm not used to having a personal life. Even if I were to close my laptop at 5 or 6 o'clock today, I would feel guilty. I'd feel like I'm doing something wrong. So that is actually something that I have not mastered yet, but I'm continuing to work on it. So, I'm okay.
No, I see it.
In this space.
No, that's great. I love to hear it. And that is such a huge accomplishment. Well,
it was one of my biggest challenges.
I can imagine. We're running out of time here.
Totally.
But I very much appreciate you meeting with me today. It was a great interview. I want to do a part 2. I need to hear more what you have to say.
I got plenty more to say,
great.
You just let me know and I'll be there.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Alex. I think that concludes everything today. So
all right. I will talk to you soon.
All set. Okay. Bye. Have a good day.